Hello, podcast listeners. Welcome to today's CAHL podcast. California Association of Healthcare Leaders is an independent chapter for the Northern and Central California region, chartered by the American College of Healthcare Executives. CAHL serves healthcare executives in 50 of California's 58 counties, and our vision is to be the premier professional society for healthcare leaders in our region, advancing healthcare excellence and healthcare leadership and improving the lives of the communities we serve. These podcast episodes are meant to provide thought leadership on numerous healthcare topics from our CAHL members and their allies. Today, we welcome Joshua Sharp, who has worked at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital in Kern County since 2005. He is the facilities director, overseeing plant operations and maintenance, construction, clinical engineering, security, and emergency preparedness. And he recently accepted a new position within his health system as the Central Valley Market Director of Facilities Management, Energy, and Infrastructure. Josh has a Master's of Science and Healthcare Administration degree from California State University in Bakersfield, and last year became a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. Congratulations, Josh. He's participated in the CAHL mentoring program and has also been a mentor in the East Bakersfield High School Health Careers Academy. He's married and has 4 children. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Michael.
So, Josh, you have a diverse background, and you've been in Bakersfield for a while. And we wanted to be able to hear from you in terms of authentic leadership. And so, how do you define authenticity in the context of healthcare leadership? And why do you think that that's important for you?
Preparing for this podcast, thinking about authenticity. I really think it's just about being yourself and sharing that with others, being your best self in many ways, and sharing those strategies with the people you work around, and encouraging them to be their best selves. And I think people are interested in doing that, and find satisfaction in doing their best and offering that to their customers and to the other people that they work with.
So, Josh, you're involved in facilities and a lot of things that we don't necessarily pay attention to, that when we've got heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, it's good, but when it's not, you have people that are calling and complaining and aren't necessarily their best selves. And then you're also involved in emergency preparedness, where there's a crisis, you lose power, there's no water, there's a tornado, or well, in California, there's not necessarily tornadoes, but there may be floods or other kinds of things that are happening, or fires, and where people aren't necessarily their best selves. So how do you maintain that authenticity in those scenarios where people are approaching you and coming to you when they're not their best selves?
I think being in healthcare, we're operating under an emergency state every day. So I think our customers, which include our own staff, are used to dealing with patient-related emergencies, but there are those unexpected power losses, or it's too hot or it's too cold, which creates uncomfortability. And so, yes, we do often get calls from others, and their needs are always the priority, and we just do our best to receive that information and assure them that we're going to be working on that behind the scenes in a timely manner, and providing that environment that they need to provide the healthcare at the front line to the patients.
So why don't you provide an example of a personal experience that you've had where you have had an emergency or something that's come up, where you've needed to work with your team as well as with people to respond to a particular crisis, and how you provided your best self as well as the best self of your team in that situation.
Sure. I don't know that this is necessarily an emergency, but something
And
that's
it doesn't have to be an emergency. It's just trying to understand, because, as we're having people that are listening, they're thinking, all right, well, how do I, while I'm my best self, how do I help my team to be able to be their best selves? Because they may not even necessarily know what that means for themselves as well.
yeah. So recently we've been having um, some complaints from our a handful of surgeons related to the temperatures in our operating rooms.
Mhm.
That it's too warm, or at least too warm for them to work comfortably, and it's kind of been somewhat of an ongoing discussion, challenge for us. So we know that through the building automation system that the sensors are going to sense that that room is heating, and that it's going to automatically make changes, um, open and close valves,
Yeah,
increase airflow or cooling or whatever. So we know that that is happening autonomously. Um, so I do my part in educating the surgical department leadership that is occurring, or that should be occurring. At the same time, I'm communicating uh, the issue to our our lead HVAC engineer and other HVAC techs, to double, triple check if needed that the system is operating as it should be. And we're communicating back and forth, uh, covering bases, to make sure that things are working, or that we're not already aware of some system issue or failure that may be occurring that's leading or causing this discomfort. Um, and also communications important. So communicating to them that I've already reassured the department staff, that we're looking into working on the issue, um, and I just using closed loop communication back and forth with my engineers and techs, uh, real time information, and then following up with the department leadership once we've done our double and triple checks to assure them that the system's operating as it should be.
sure. It's very much Ronald Reagan used to say, you need to trust and then verify. So that
Yep.
when they're saying that they're warm, if the temperature is supposed to be 64 degrees, let's put a thermometer in there, a separate thermometer to be able to see it's 64 degrees. And someone may um, respond differently in terms of thinking that it's warmer when it's not really warmer. On the other hand, I've been in those situations as well where we check the system that it tells us it's 64 degrees, and then we test it and there is a problem with a vent or something not opening or closing to be able to keep it that way. Let's pivot over to security. You have responsibility for security within your facility. And so how do you how do you become an effective leader in terms of providing an environment that's safe and secure?
So we started this a couple of years ago. Uh, we created a Google survey and sent it out to all of our staff just to get a gauge on how safe people felt
Mhm.
working on our campus. We um, live in an area with a pretty high crime rate, and we know that instance, that vehicles get broken into on a fairly regular basis.
Sure.
So we created a survey just to gauge that amongst the staff. How safe do you feel working here? How safe do you feel walking to your car? Is that, during the day? How safe do you feel walking to your car at night? How safe do you believe your vehicle and your belongings are in your vehicle
Sure.
while it's parked here on the campus? Those kinds of things.
And it's not just in the car. It's that as patients are becoming and their families are becoming violent in healthcare settings, more so than we've ever seen before. So it's definitely a national issue that people want more responses in terms of how they can feel safe and secure.
So just surveying people, going back for a second with the cooling issue in the operating rooms. We also make an effort to respond so that the department staff can see our staff up there, and so that they feel heard. And similarly with this safety survey, I think it's important for staff just to feel like they're being heard and their concerns are being addressed. So we collected a lot of really good information initially, towards the end of 2022.
So during the pandemic.
Yes, yeah. And staff identified things like, we feel like there should be more cameras in this area of the parking lot, or when I'm walking from point A to point B, it's really dark at night.
Sure.
Maybe I've come across a homeless person that's camping out for the night in this area. Can we improve access control or security foot patrol in that area? And anyway, so we were able to collect a lot of very good information, working with security management supervisors, and hospital leadership in our environment of care committee. We put together a list of recommendations, the ones that were actionable, and we could identify
Sure.
specifics that were actionable. And we prioritized those and worked on them over the course of the next 12 months. Added quite a few cameras, added quite a few access control improvements,
Mhm.
added some lights, improved lighting. We implemented, or we brought on a contracted third-party armed officer K9 unit for a period of time.
Mhm.
Implemented some other things, and then we communicated that back to the staff that, because many times if you didn't tell them, they may not even notice that you added a light here,
Right.
added over here. So we kind of highlighted those improvements, and then we followed up this year. We're still looking at the results, but we surveyed the staff again to try to gauge whether they feel safer
Sure.
or not, and whether maybe those improvements helped that sense of security, or maybe there are some other environmental things that we'll uncover.
So Josh, when you talk about prioritizing, how do you prioritize open communication and transparency as key elements of authentic leadership in healthcare, especially where there's times where you may need to keep things confidential and there's people that want to know more just because they are nosy and they don't necessarily need to know, but they want to know and they think they need to know. But it's something that, especially in healthcare, that we take the time to be able to respect people's privacy and confidentiality. So how do you as a leader weigh that if people want more information and you have to provide that balance in terms of what you can and can't provide?
I'm definitely a proponent of being open and communicating as much as I can with not only my staff and the leadership that falls under me, but staff in general. And that openness just creates the trust. And yes, you do need to maintain a level of privacy, but at least internally with my team there, it's important to share a lot of the details so that they can understand the whys, and it is necessary for their job function to fully understand. And so I do typically feel comfortable sharing vast majority of information, but
Sure.
I don't feel like I'm withholding very much from them. There are times when direction may be coming down from, say, the system level that needs to be kept confidential. There's obviously HR issues that come up
Right.
where that confidentiality needs to be uh, maintained. And I think that is a challenge for leaders.
Mhm.
When you want to be open and knowing that a month from now, when this thing comes out, that your staff or leadership under you is going to know that you have not been completely honest with them.
Well, and I think there's a difference between saying being completely honest and knowing that you have been honest. There are certain, like you said, confidential things that you need to keep in place, and you share as much as you can. But it's not that you're not honest, and I think that's the challenge that we all have as leaders, is that balance of how much we can share versus how much we can't share. And I think especially with you and responsibility for emergency management as well as for security, there's a lot of those issues of how far you can go in terms of the information you can share with that. So let's talk about you're only as effective and good as your team of the people that work with you and underneath you. Uh, how do you share, or how do you coach, teach, mentor your team to be able to espouse to the values of being the authentic leader that you are? Because, like you said, people come from a lot of different perspectives and they may not necessarily have the same values or the same understanding, especially in healthcare, of how they need to act and how they need to communicate. And so give me either an example or something of what you've done to be able to bring the team underneath you to understand and to follow what's important.
Just want to start with, a big part of that is obviously hiring the right people.
Right.
But I think that I have been successful as a leader in part just due to my um, drive and one of my core values being, excellence. I'm a big proponent of setting goals, smart goals. I share those goals with the leaders that are under me. I encourage them to, set goals, and we talk about those goals frequently. And setting those tasks to continue to work towards achieving those goals. I'll use, for example, just sharing with people when I went back to school to get my master's degree in healthcare administration. And I remember sharing with a number of people how, I put off going back to school for a long time Um, and one of my, I would say, weaknesses in my undergraduate program was, communication and writing, and so I've shared with people that I didn't realize um, how much those skills had improved over the years of communicating verbally and meetings, and just emailing. You're reading and writing all day long, and so going back to school wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And I've encouraged a couple of people in our department now. One in particular should be getting a couple of associate's degrees here by the end of the year, and another one is just starting a new program. Two people that I don't think would have gone back to school if I hadn't helped encourage and give them the confidence that was achievable and would be beneficial to them. I would also say another challenge that I've found as a leader in a role that has responsibilities, that any responsibility can be delegated, but I've found it challenging over the years that I like to stay busy, and so I've retained some responsibilities, maybe for too long in some instances, that it's always a work in progress to cross train and to improve the resume of others by, in some cases, cross training. Maybe something that my security manager has been responsible for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Maybe this is a good growth opportunity for my facilities maintenance manager
Sure.
to take on, to grow his resume. And maybe I can delegate something that I've hung on to my security manager so that he can build his resume. And it's also good, just to do something new, for myself to do something new, for each of them to do something new. We'll all grow through that process. And I guess really just tying that back to goals, and constantly identifying new opportunities for growth, and working towards those.
So what I'm hearing is that just as you've been a mentor at CAHL as well as with a local high school, that you're mentoring and coaching your team, not only to be effective in what they're at, but as they continue to learn and grow, whether it's through additional education or additional responsibilities, that you also are developing SMART goals that are specific, measurable, actionable, timely, and realistic, and helping people to be able to communicate more effectively with their teams and with the people that they serve, and making sure that they understand it, and they also have ownership, and especially in safety and security, that they have ownership in the work that they're involved in as well. So Josh, is there any closing comments you want to make before we end this podcast about being an authentic leader for our listeners?
Just staying on goals for a second. I think it's also, in addition to those professional goals, to communicate personal goals, whether that's reading, finishing or starting that book that you've been wanting to read, or maybe it's a health and fitness goal. Obviously, education is always an opportunity. Maybe it's improving your relationship with your 12-year-old. Maybe your goal is going to be, I want to attend more of their after school activities or whatever that is,
Sure.
and you know, creating that work-life balance, and letting people around you know that you know that you are interested in them, you know, not only them growing professionally, but being a happier person, feeling more fulfilled in life.
Sure. All right. Well, this concludes CAHL's podcast for today. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we do have plans to continue providing thought-provoking insight from healthcare leaders throughout CAHL's geography. We hope you continue to learn something new every day to make difference, and in the process, that you're kind in terms of doing that. So thank you, everyone.